Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. What do you mean he's not coming? Victor Langford's voice echoed through the dining room, deep and sharp, making some customers glance over curiously. Do you realize what you're telling me, James? Without a translator, we're doomed. Sitting at the most private table in the restaurant, Victor gripped the napkin between his fingers as if he might tear the expensive fabric apart. His expression, usually unreadable, was now pure nervousness. Across from him, his assistant James trembled, still holding his phone. He said something came up. "Mr. Langford," James stammered. "Personal issue. He won't make it. I tried to insist, but nothing." Victor cut him off, slamming his hand on the table. "Müller is German, James. The whole contract is in German. Can you read German?" "I can't." James took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but his forehead was already shining with sweat. "Sir, maybe we could improvise. A translation app." "Maybe. A translation app," Victor repeated, voice rising. "You think I'm going to risk $1 billion deal with a phone app?" Victor leaned over the table, eyes blazing. "I'm about to lose billions, James. Billions. Do you even understand how big this is?" The words hung in the air like sharp knives. All around, the luxurious dining room had turned into a stage of quiet tension. Discreet glances were exchanged. A millionaire about to explode wasn't something you saw every day. That's when Elena approached, tray in hand, light steps but sharp eyes. She had already picked up the heated tone between the two men during her earlier visits to the table. Now, as she poured more wine into Victor's glass, she clearly caught the words German and billions floating in the air. She glanced at the two of them, a nearly collapsing assistant and a tycoon on the verge of a meltdown. A spark of boldness flashed in her eyes. "Having language issues?" she asked, as casual as if she were offering more bread. Victor turned sharply toward her, annoyed by the interruption. "Yes, but it's nothing you can fix." Elena tilted her head slightly, her discreet smile hiding curiosity. "What language do you need exactly?" Victor huffed, impatient. "German. But don't bother asking. You wouldn't understand." Elena's smile widened this time with a hint of challenge. "Just because I'm a waitress doesn't mean I don't know languages, Mr. Langford." The silence that followed was almost tangible. Her words cut through the air like an arrow. James' eyes widened in disbelief. A few heads turned to watch. Victor frowned, staring at Elena like she had just suggested something insane. "You speak German?" he asked, still doubtful. "Fluently," Elena replied casually, swirling the wine bottle without any rush. "Along with French and Italian, in case you need those too." James let out a nervous, almost mocking laugh. "You've got to be kidding." Elena raised her eyebrows and looked Victor straight in the eye. "It's not a joke. I'm offering the only real solution you have right now. Do you want it or not?" Victor hesitated for a second, sizing her up. That kind of confidence wasn't something he saw often. And before he could answer, the restaurant doors opened. Herr Müller, tall and imposing, walked in with two advisors. The clock showed it was time for dinner. Time was up. Victor looked at Elena. A flash of decision lit his eyes. "All right. Have a seat." And Elena, still in her waitress uniform, pulled out a chair and sat at the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. The entire restaurant followed her with stunned eyes. Dinner began. Herr Müller greeted Victor politely. Elena, with a professional smile, translated every word in flawless German. Müller raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised. Assistant James said nothing, just watched. And slowly, Victor's panic began to shift into quiet relief. She guided the conversation like she'd been doing it her whole life. Within minutes, the two men were laughing, and Victor, still in disbelief, saw the deal moving forward. Half an hour later, Herr Müller shook his hand, satisfied. The deal was done. Billions were saved. At that moment, Elena caught a subtle signal from the restaurant manager watching from a distance with a stern face. She politely excused herself from the table. But before she could leave, the manager quickly approached, face red with indignation. "How dare you sit at the client's table, Elena?" His voice was loud, drawing attention. "You're a waitress. Just a waitress. Do you realize the scandal you're causing? You're fired." And to Victor, "Mr. Langford, I apologize for this inconvenience." Elena opened her mouth to explain, but he didn't let her. "Go back to the kitchen, get your things, and leave." She stayed quiet, holding back the urge to respond, but her eyes, still steady, turned to Victor. He had witnessed the whole scene. His expression hardened. Victor stood up. The air around him grew heavy. "She's not going anywhere," he said, voice low but sharp. "And you're going to hear what I have to say before you open your mouth again." The entire restaurant froze. Everyone was now watching. Elena, still unsure of what was coming next, felt her heart race. Victor Langford stepped forward, his presence taking over the room. The manager, who just seconds ago had been shouting with authority, now seemed to shrink in front of the millionaire. "Let me get this straight," Victor began, voice dangerously calm. "You're firing the person who just saved a multi-billion-dollar deal because she had the nerve to sit down." The manager swallowed hard, trying to keep some composure. "Mr. Langford, there are protocols, hierarchies that need to be respected." "Protocols." Victor let out a dry laugh. "You know which protocol I respect? Competence. And this woman," he pointed to, "Elena, has more competence in her little finger than half the executives I know." Elena watched the scene, switching between surprise and an almost uncontrollable urge to laugh. Seeing her ex-boss being torn apart by Victor Langford was better than any revenge she could have imagined. Besides, Victor went on, now circling the manager like a shark, "You publicly humiliated someone who was helping my business. Do you know what that says about your establishment? That you don't recognize talent when it's pouring wine right in front of you." The manager's face turned several shades of red. Some nearby customers watched in fascination, as if witnessing live theater. "I apologize, Mr. Langford. Maybe I acted too quickly. Too quickly." Victor shook his head. "You were incompetent, and do you know what I'm going to do now?" The manager grew even paler, probably imagining harsh online reviews and losing wealthy clients. Victor turned to Elena, who was still holding the empty tray, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Elena, I want you to come work for me. I need someone like you. Be my official translator and personal assistant." The silence that followed was deafening. James nearly dropped his phone. Herr Müller, still sitting at his table, raised his eyebrows with interest. The manager looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Elena blinked several times, processing the words. Then, with the same ease she used when serving wine, she replied, "Are you out of your mind? I just lost my job because of you." Victor didn't flinch. "No. You got a better job with a salary that makes this place look like tip money. Oh, so now you think you can just snap your fingers and it'll come running." Elena crossed her arms, completely ignoring the fact she was arguing with a billionaire in front of dozens of people. "I'm not snapping fingers," Victor replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I'm making a professional offer. You proved yourself exceptional. I hire exceptional people." Elena looked at the manager, who seemed on the verge of fainting, then back at Victor, who had that serious expression with a defiant spark in his eyes. "Are you serious? Completely serious? You saved my business today. I want you on my team." Elena bit her lip, clearly fighting a smile. Then, with a mischievous look that made the manager take a step back, she said out loud, "Well, since I've already been fired, I'll accept, but on my terms." Victor tilted his head, intrigued. "I'm listening." "First, let's get out of here. It's getting awkward watching my ex-boss about to cry." Without waiting for an answer, Elena took off her apron, tossed it on a nearby chair, and walked toward the exit. Victor, genuinely surprised by her boldness, followed after leaving a generous amount of cash on the table and nodding to Herr Mueller. Outside, the fresh New York night air greeted them. Elena took a deep breath, as if she could finally relax. "So," Victor began, "about those terms." "Oh, yes." Elena turned to him, counting on her fingers. "First, no coffee runs. If you want coffee, there's a machine in the office, or you can ask another assistant." Victor raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Second, full freedom to speak my mind. If I think you're making a mistake, I'll say it." "Interesting," he murmured. "Third, never ever under any circumstance call me just an assistant. Either you accept that I'm a qualified professional, or you look for someone else. Anything else?" Victor asked, clearly amused. "That's all for now, but I reserve the right to add more rules if necessary." Victor extended his hand. "We have a deal, Elena." "Ramirez," she finished, shaking his hand firmly. "Elena Ramirez. Welcome to Langford Enterprises, Miss Ramirez. Monday, 8 a.m. The address is on the card." He handed her an elegant business card. Elena looked it over, then at him. "You do know I have no idea what a real personal assistant actually does, right? You pulled off a billion-dollar business dinner. I'm sure you'll manage. Yeah?" "I do have that special talent for getting into trouble," she said, putting the card away. "See you Monday, boss." "Victor," he corrected. "In the office it's Mr. Langford. But between us, Victor is fine." Elena waved as she walked away. "Fine, Victor. I just hope your other employees are less dramatic than my ex-manager." As she disappeared into the crowd of pedestrians, Victor remained on the sidewalk, a reluctant smile on his face. James, who had finally stepped out of the restaurant, approached cautiously. "Sir, are you sure about this? Hiring a waitress as your personal assistant?" Victor looked toward the direction Elena had gone. "James, that woman speaks 3 languages fluently, saved a billion-dollar deal, and had the guts to stand up to me. Do you know many MBAs who would do that?" James didn't answer. "Yeah, me neither." Victor concluded. "Monday is going to be interesting." When Elena arrived at her apartment in Brooklyn, she dropped onto the couch and stared at the business card. "Langford Enterprises," she read aloud. "What did I just get myself into?" She stood and went to her closet. Her clothes were simple, nothing that matched Manhattan's corporate world. She sighed. She'd have to improvise, as always. Monday came faster than expected. At 7:45 a.m., Elena stood in front of the towering glass and steel building in the heart of Manhattan. She wore her best outfit, black pants bought on sale and a white blouse she hoped looked professional enough. "This is it," she whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders. The automatic doors opened, revealing a lobby that looked like something out of a movie. Marble everywhere, a chandelier that probably cost more than her annual rent, and people in suits straight out of a fashion magazine. Elena swallowed hard. This definitely wasn't going to be easy. She walked across the marble lobby, trying to appear confident, but her cheap shoes echoed awkwardly against the polished floor. At the reception desk, 2 impeccably dressed women watched her approach, exchanging knowing glances. "Good morning. I'm Elena Ramirez. I'm starting today as Mr. Langford's assistant," she announced, trying to ignore the whispers. The blonde receptionist typed quickly, frowned, then typed again. "Ramirez. Ramirez. Oh, here it is. Personal assistant." Her tone made it clear she was surprised. "That's right," Elena confirmed, keeping her smile steady. 42nd floor. Executive elevator on the right." The receptionist pointed, still giving Elena a head-to-toe evaluation. While she waited for the elevator, Elena overheard fragments behind her. Langford's personal assistant? Must be a mistake. Look at what she's wearing. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped in, pressing the button harder than necessary. First day and I'm already making friends, she muttered. The 42nd floor was even more intimidating: glass walls, sleek furniture, and an atmosphere that screamed power and money. Elena barely had time to take it all in before a tall man in a flawless gray suit and perfectly styled hair approached. "You must be the waitress," he said, pronouncing the word like it left a bad taste. "Former waitress," Elena corrected. "Now personal assistant." "And you are?" "Marcus Whitford, Chief Operating Officer and Mr. Langford's right-hand man for 5 years. He walked around her as if inspecting. Interesting choice of attire for a first day. Elena looked down at her simple outfit, then at the suit that probably cost 3 months of her rent. It's my humble chic style. Very trendy in Brooklyn. Marcus didn't laugh. "Come on. I'll introduce you to the rest of the team." He started walking, speaking over his shoulder. "Everyone, listen up. This is Elena Ramirez, Mr. Langford's, how should I say, last-minute translation hire." About a dozen faces turned to look at her. Elena could practically feel the judgment in the air. "Nice to meet you," she said, giving a small wave. "I'm the waitress who saved billions. And you are?" She paused dramatically. "Oh, right, the people who needed a waitress to save billions." An awkward silence filled the room. Then, someone at the back let out a muffled laugh. Another followed. Marcus looked visibly annoyed. "Very funny," he said flatly. "Let's see how long that sense of humor lasts around here. Good morning, everyone." Victor Langford's voice cut through the tension. He was standing at his office door, watching the scene. "I see you've all met Elena." "Yes, sir," Marcus answered. "I was just explaining the company protocols." "I'm sure you were," Victor said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Elena, my office. We need to go over your schedule." Elena followed Victor, but not before winking at the group. "Nice meeting you all. Can't wait to work with you." Victor's office was exactly what she expected: huge, with a panoramic view of Manhattan and furniture that probably cost more than a car. "Have a seat," he said, pointing to a chair. "How are you feeling?" "Like a zebra in a stable full of racehorses," Elena replied honestly. Victor almost smiled. "Marcus can be territorial. Don't take it personally." "Territorial?" She laughed. He looked at me like I was a ketchup stain on a Monet painting. "You have a unique way of describing things," Victor said, handing her a tablet. "Here's your schedule: meetings, appointments, everything you need to know." Elena scrolled through the screen. Investor meeting. London branch conference. Lunch with the board. She stopped. "Wait, meeting with Japanese investors today at 3? "Yes." "Last-minute opportunity. Very important." Elena bit her lip. "Victor, I have to be honest, my Japanese isn't as fluent as my German. I know some words, basic phrases, but a full business meeting." Victor's face grew serious. "Are you saying you can't do it?" "I'm saying I'll have to get creative," Elena replied. "I can use some words I know and, well, Google Translate exists for a reason." "Google Translate in a business meeting?" "Look, I know it's not ideal, but with my basic knowledge and a bit of tech, I can make it work. I've handled worse." Victor studied her for a moment. "You saved my German deal. I trust you. Thank you." Throughout the morning, Elena moved through tasks, surprising some and annoying others. When a document in French came in, she translated it in minutes. When someone needed to talk to an Italian supplier, she handled it smoothly. "She's like a linguistic Swiss Army knife," one secretary said during lunch. "More like a ticking time bomb," Marcus muttered as he walked by. At 2 p.m., Elena was organizing documents for the Japanese meeting when Marcus showed up at her makeshift desk. "You know, there are specific protocols for Japanese meetings," he said. "Bows, business cards, hierarchy things a waitress probably wouldn't know." "I know about bows," Elena interrupted. 15 degrees for casual, 30 for respect, 45 for deep respect or apology. Business cards with both hands receive and examine carefully before putting away, never in the back pocket. Marcus blinked, surprised. "I worked tables at a fancy restaurant," Elena continued. "We had clients from all over the world. I picked up a few things." Before he could reply, Victor appeared. "Elena, I need you in the conference room." The Japanese guests arrived early. Elena quickly grabbed her phone, already opening Google Translate discreetly, of course, and whispered to herself, "Here we go." Marcus followed, clearly expecting disaster. In the conference room, 3 Japanese executives were waiting. Elena took a deep breath, gave a respectful 30-degree bow, and said in basic Japanese, "Welcome to Langford Enterprises. It's an honor to have you here." The executives seemed pleasantly surprised. One answered quickly in Japanese. Elena smiled, understanding only half. Discreetly, she typed a few keywords into her phone under the table. "They're thanking us for the warm welcome and mentioning something about a tech proposal," she translated to Victor. The meeting went on with Elena switching between limited knowledge, contextual clues, and quiet phone searches. Surprisingly, it worked. The Japanese guests seemed more amused than offended by her obvious effort. "Your Japanese is interesting," one said with a smile. "Thank you. I'm still learning, but my Google fu is excellent," Elena replied, showing her phone. To everyone's surprise, the Japanese guests laughed. The ice was broken. An hour later, the meeting ended successfully. The investors left satisfied, leaving behind a preliminary proposal. "I can't believe that actually worked," Marcus muttered. "I can," Victor said, watching Elena put her phone away. "She has a special talent for turning the impossible into possible." Exhausted but victorious, Elena collapsed into her chair. "Talent? I call it creative desperation." "Call it whatever you want," Victor said, "but it's working. Keep it up." As Victor headed back to his office, Marcus walked up to Elena. "Don't think a few tricks will impress everyone around here," he said quietly. Elena looked him straight in the eye. "Marcus, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just trying to do my job. If that bothers you, maybe the problem isn't me." Marcus walked away without replying, but Elena could already tell this wouldn't be their last confrontation. "First day and I already made an enemy," she sighed. "At least the Japanese liked me." She looked out the window at the city below. Working here wouldn't be easy, but since when did she choose the easy path? Later, Elena was organizing the meeting papers, satisfied with the unlikely outcome of her basic Japanese mixed with tech. Victor was chatting with James near the window, clearly relieved that another deal was moving forward. "I have to admit," James said, glancing subtly at Elena, "she has a unique talent for getting out of impossible situations." Victor nodded, watching Elena work. "That's exactly why I hired her. Sometimes you need someone who thinks outside the box." Across the room, Marcus kept a neutral expression, but his fingers tapped impatiently on the table. Laura, the secretary, approached him with a folder. "The final documents for the Japanese proposal. Mr. Whitford. They've already been reviewed by legal." Marcus took the folder, flipping through it quickly. "Great. It'll take one last look before we send it out." Elena walked over to the main table where the preliminary contracts lay. Years of waiting tables had taught her to pay attention to detail. One wrong order could ruin an entire evening. That habit was proving useful now. She picked up the first document, scanning the terms in both English and Japanese. Something caught her eye. "Wait a second," she murmured, frowning. "Is there a problem?" Victor asked, coming closer. Elena pointed to a clause. This percentage here, it says 30%. But I'm sure the Japanese mentioned 13% during the meeting. Must be a typo, Marcus said quickly, appearing out of nowhere. He'll have it fixed. It's not just that, Elena went on, turning the page. Here it says the delivery deadline is 18 months, but they specifically asked for 8 months. And this exclusivity clause, this would give them rights to all our technology, not just the specific project. Victor's face turned serious. He grabbed the document, reading carefully. My God, she's right. If we had sent this, we would have lost the deal and probably ended up in a legal mess, James added, pale. Elena kept checking the other documents. Here is another one. The investment amount is missing a zero. It says 50 million instead of 500 million. How did this get past legal? Victor asked, voice tight, with restrained anger. Laura looked horrified. I don't understand. I received these directly from the system, already approved. Elena noticed something odd. In the corner of the page, a faint digital watermark, a timestamp showing when the document was last edited. These were changed, she said, 40 minutes ago. After they left legal. A tense silence filled the room. Well, Elena said, trying to lighten the mood. At least we caught it before sending. Can you imagine the look on the Japanese team's faces getting a proposal that asked them to work for free for a year and a half and also give us full rights to all their future ideas? They'd think we were joking. Some employees laughed nervously, but Victor remained serious. James, I want a full investigation. Someone tried to sabotage this deal. It could have been an honest mistake, Marcus suggested. The system glitches sometimes. Mistake? Elena picked up another document. Then look at this mistake. The termination clause completely favors the other party, and this paragraph literally says, we give up any compensation if the contract is broken. How are you spotting all this so quickly? Laura asked, genuinely impressed. Elena shrugged. I spent years memorizing complicated orders from picky customers. I want a latte with almond milk but only 1/3 almond, 2/3 soy, extra foam but not too hot. 3 pumps of sugar-free vanilla but add half a spoon of brown sugar, not the white one. Compared to that, business contracts are easy. Despite the tension, Victor almost smiled. All right, Elena, I need you to rewrite all these documents with the correct terms. Laura, work with her. James, find out exactly how this happened. Marcus quickly offered. I can oversee the document corrections. That won't be necessary, Victor said firmly. Elena can handle it. Marcus' face stayed neutral, but Elena noticed a tight muscle twitch in his jaw. Over the next 2 hours, Elena worked carefully through the documents, with Laura at her side. At first, distant, the secretary gradually warmed up. You know, you're not what I expected, Laura commented. Let me guess, you thought I wouldn't know the difference between a memo and a menu? Laura laughed. Something like that. Sorry for the judgment. No hard feelings. I'd probably feel the same if my boss hired someone straight from a restaurant. As they worked, Elena began to notice patterns in the errors. They weren't random. They were strategically placed to look accidental but cause major damage. Laura, can you check who last accessed these files in the system? Let me take a look. Laura typed quickly. That's odd. The log only shows a generic system user, but that shouldn't be possible. Everyone's supposed to log in with personal credentials. Elena kept that detail in mind. Someone had tried to cover their tracks, but not completely. By the end of the day, with the corrected documents sent, Elena decided to dig a little deeper. She stayed after hours, saying she was tidying her desk. Once the office emptied, she logged into the computer, another unexpected benefit of having to fix the restaurant's ordering system when the tech guy took too long. She navigated through the system logs, looking for anything strange. Bingo, she whispered when she found it. There were irregular logins to the system always around important meetings. The pattern was clear. Someone had been sabotaging deals on purpose. But why? Working late on your first day? Elena almost jumped out of her chair. Marcus was standing in the doorway, watching her. Jesus. Marcus trying to give me a heart attack? Sorry. I saw the lights on and came to check. He walked in, steps silent on the carpet. Find anything interesting? Just getting familiar with the system, Elena said quickly, closing the windows. Marcus stepped closer, too close for comfort. You know, Elena, this is a complex corporate environment. It's not like waiting tables. Sometimes people with no experience misread situations. Are you suggesting something? Only that it's wise to stick to your assigned tasks. Leave the investigations to those with experience. Elena stood up and faced him. Funny, because those with experience almost let mistakes worth millions slip through. Marcus' smile was cold. Everyone makes mistakes. Some bigger than others. For example, it'd be a shame if someone found out about your interesting past. My past? Just an observation. Good night, Elena. He left, leaving her with a knot in her stomach. Elena grabbed her things, mind racing. Marcus knew something, or he was bluffing. More importantly, was he the one sabotaging things? In the elevator, she ran into Harold, the kind older night security guard. First week's always the hardest, he said, noticing her tired expression. You have no idea, Harold. Mind if I give you some advice? I've worked here 20 years. Seen a lot of people come and go. The ones who last are the ones who learn how to play the game but never forget who they are. Elena smiled. Thank you. He'll remember that. As she walked toward the subway, Elena reflected on the day. She had saved another deal but discovered something much more troubling. Someone was actively trying to harm Victor's company. The question was why, and more importantly, how did Marcus know about her past? Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor. Excellent work today. The Japanese team was impressed with the revised documents. You have a sharp eye for detail. Elena smiled and typed back. Thanks. Heads up, I think we have a bigger problem than typos. His reply came quickly. Well, talk tomorrow. And Elena, be careful who you trust. She put the phone away. Victor's warning echoing in her mind. The corporate world was definitely more dangerous than waiting tables. At least there, when someone wanted to stab you in the back, they usually did it with a salad fork, not forged documents. The next day promised to be even more interesting, and Elena had the feeling Marcus was just getting started. The next morning, Elena arrived at the office with a strange knot in her stomach. Victor's warning about trust and Marcus' veiled threat from the night before still echoed in her head. She tried to shake it off while organizing her desk. Good morning, Elena. Laura greeted her, genuinely friendly after yesterday's teamwork. Ready for another day of hunting errors? Always ready, Elena replied, forcing a smile. Today I promised myself to catch at least 3 stray commas and 1 rogue semicolon. Laura laughed, but her expression shifted when she saw Marcus approaching with a smile that never reached his eyes. Elena, board meeting in 5 minutes. Mandatory attendance, he announced. Board meeting? I didn't get any last-minute decision. Don't be late. He turned and walked away, leaving a trail of bad energy. Laura frowned. That's odd. Board meetings are scheduled weeks in advance. Elena felt the knot tighten. Something tells me I'm not going to like this. 5 minutes later, she walked into the imposing boardroom. The oval table was surrounded by serious faces, board members, directors, and Victor at the head, looking just as surprised as she was by the sudden meeting. Ah, our guest of honor has arrived, Marcus said, motioning for her to sit. Elena chose a seat close to Victor, trying to appear confident despite her racing heart. Marcus, what's the reason for this unscheduled meeting? Victor asked, tone carrying a clear warning. "Corporate security," Marcus replied smoothly, opening a folder. "As COO, it's my responsibility to ensure all employees are properly vetted, especially those in trusted positions." "What are you getting at?" Victor demanded. "Well, I took the liberty of running a background check on our newest employee just as a precaution, of course." Marcus gave Elena a cold smile. The results were enlightening. Elena felt her blood run cold. So that was it. He was going to expose her life like a public execution. Marcus began reading from the file. Elena Ramirez, 28 years old, enrolled in the business administration program at NYU, but he paused dramatically, dropped out in her second year. Reason: delinquency. She couldn't afford tuition. Murmurs rippled around the room. Elena kept her chin up, though her cheeks burned. "Since then," Marcus continued, clearly savoring the moment, "she's worked only as a waitress. 5 years at the same restaurant. No corporate experience. No formal qualifications beyond high school." "So what?" A younger board member, Thomas, interrupted. "Half of Silicon Valley doesn't have a degree." Marcus ignored him. "But it gets more interesting. The reason she dropped out, her mother, Maria Ramirez, was diagnosed with cancer. Elena had to choose between education and her mother's treatment." The room fell silent. Elena clenched her fists under the table, fighting back tears. "A touching story," Marcus went on, tone now poisonous. "But I wonder, couldn't it be just a little too convenient? A waitress, deep in debt, suddenly shows up, saves a deal, and now has access to confidential company information. Who's to say she's not taking advantage of Mr. Langford's generosity?" "Enough." Victor slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. "Marcus, you've crossed the line." "I'm simply protecting the company's interests," Marcus said defensively. "Someone has to be objective here." Elena finally found her voice, even though it shook. "You want the truth, Marcus?" "Yes. I dropped out of college. Yes. I chose my mother over a diploma. And you know what? I'd do it all over again." She stood, looking each person in the eye. "I spent 5 years serving people who looked at me exactly like you're looking at me now, like I was worth less because I wore an apron instead of a suit. But you know what I learned? I learned languages by listening to customers. I learned negotiation, mediating between a hot-headed chef and impossible clients. I learned how to read people, solve problems, think on my feet." Her voice grew stronger. "I don't have an MBA, that's true, but I saved 2 deals in 2 days. How many MBAs in here can say the same?" "Pretty words," Marcus replied. "But how do you explain someone with no experience spotting mistakes our legal team missed?" "Maybe because she herself—" "Choose your next words very carefully, Marcus," Victor warned, voice ice cold. "Are you suggesting Elena is involved in some kind of scheme?" Victor continued. "Why are you so invested in discrediting someone who's been helping the company? Why this unauthorized investigation? And what makes you think you have the right to expose an employee's personal life like this?" An older board member, Margaret Whitman, interjected. "Marcus may have been harsh, but his concerns are valid. The young woman has no formal qualifications." "Qualifications?" Victor nearly laughed. "Do you know what I see when I look at Elena? Someone who sacrificed her future for her family, who worked tirelessly to support her sick mother, who taught herself 3 languages, who has the courage to sit across from billion-dollar investors and make the impossible look easy." He looked straight at Elena. "Talent doesn't come from diplomas. It comes from results. And she's proven her worth more than some people here with walls full of certificates." The room was divided. Some looked thoughtful, others skeptical. "That's very touching," Marcus said. "But emotion doesn't protect the company from risk. Do you know what the real risk is?" Elena cut in, patience gone. "People like you who'd rather protect their egos than recognize real talent. who are so afraid of change they sabotage anyone who doesn't fit the mold. How dare you, I'm not done. Elena continued. Yes, I'm a former waitress. Yes, I'm drowning in medical bills. And yes, I'm learning as I go. But at least I'm honest about it. What's your excuse for being a felona? Victor gently touched her arm. That's enough. She took a deep breath, realizing she was shaking. Sorry. I need some air. Elena left the room quickly. Out in the hallway, she leaned against the wall, finally letting a few tears fall. Here. She looked up Victor offering a handkerchief. Is the meeting over? I sent everyone home. Marcus will be having a serious talk with HR about professional conduct. Elena let out a bitter laugh. He wasn't wrong, you know. I really am just a waitress pretending to understand this world. Victor leaned against the wall beside her. Want to know a secret? Half the people in that room inherited their positions, born into wealth, given every opportunity. You fought for every step. That doesn't make you less. That makes you stronger. Why are you being so kind to me? Elena asked, wiping her eyes. Because I recognize a fighter when I see one. And because... He paused, choosing his words. Because you remind me that success isn't just about numbers and contracts. It's about people. They stood in silence for a moment. Something shifted between them, something that went beyond professional. You know, Elena said, trying to lighten the mood. My mom always said I talk too much when I'm nervous. I guess I proved her right today. Victor smiled. You stood up for yourself. I admire that. Thanks for standing up for me in there. Always. The moment was interrupted by James rushing down the hallway, face pale. Mr. Langford, we have a serious problem. I just got a call from the Wall Street Journal. They have our confidential documents. Someone leaked our expansion strategy for Asia. Victor went rigid. What documents exactly? The full plans, financial projections, potential partners, everything. If they publish it, our competitors will have our entire strategy. Elena and Victor exchanged a look. Coincidence? Elena asked quietly. I don't believe in coincidences, Victor replied, face set in determination. James, call the cybersecurity team. I want to know exactly how these documents got out. As James rushed off, Victor turned to Elena. Looks like someone's playing dirty. The question is why? Elena thought of Marcus, his unauthorized digging, his veiled threats. I think I know where to start looking. Be careful, Victor warned. If we're right, this person is dangerous. I don't want you putting yourself at risk. Elena almost laughed. After having my life exposed and humiliated in public, a little corporate investigation feels almost relaxing. Victor, I survived 5 years dealing with drunk customers, hot-headed chefs, and lousy tips. I think I can handle a backstabbing executive. But as they returned to the office, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much more complicated. The leak was too serious to be just petty revenge. Someone wanted to destroy Langford Enterprises, and Elena was caught right in the middle of it. News of the leak spread through the office like wildfire. In less than an hour, everyone knew that confidential documents about the Asian expansion had made their way to the press. The atmosphere, already tense after the board meeting, became suffocating. Elena was at her makeshift desk trying to process everything when she heard Marcus' sharp voice echoing down the hallway. It's just too much of a coincidence, he declared loudly enough for anyone within earshot to hear. An ex-waitress gets hired, gets access to sensitive files, and suddenly our plans are leaked to the media. Laura, organizing files nearby, whispered to Elena, Ignore him. Hess clearly trying to shift the blame. Shift the blame from what? Elena asked, though she already had a hunch. Before Laura could answer, Marcus appeared at Elena's desk, followed by several curious executives. Miss Ramirez, he began with fake politeness. Don't you find it interesting that this leak happened right after your emotional performance at the board meeting? Elena looked up slowly. Are you accusing me of something, Marcus? Just pointing out the facts. You were publicly humiliated. You have clear financial motives, and now confidential information shows up in the press. Any investigator would connect the dots. Any lazy investigator, you mean? Elena shot back. Real investigators look for evidence, not scapegoats. The growing crowd watched their exchange like a tennis match. Scapegoat? Marcus laughed humorlessly. You had access to those files yesterday when you reviewed the Japanese contracts. Coincidence? I also had access to the executive bathroom. Want to blame me if the toilet breaks? A few employees stifled laughter, which clearly irritated Marcus. This is not a joke. The company's reputation is at stake. I completely agree, Victor interrupted, stepping out of the elevator. His presence instantly changed the mood. That's exactly why we're going to run a professional investigation, not a hallway trial. Victor, Marcus turned to him, surely you see the obvious connection. What I see, Victor cut him off, is my chief operating officer making accusations without proof. James, I want the cybersecurity team in my office in 10 minutes. And Marcus, if you have solid evidence, present it. Otherwise, I suggest you get back to work. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Victor's look shut him down. He stormed off, muttering about favoritism. The crowd dispersed, leaving Elena and Victor mostly alone. Thank you, she said softly. Don't thank me yet. This is serious. The Wall Street Journal is set to publish tomorrow unless we get a court order. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of frustration. I need you to be honest with me. Did you share those documents with anyone? Elena looked him straight in the eye. I didn't even know those documents existed until James mentioned them. I spent the night checking contracts for errors, not leaking company secrets. Victor nodded. I believe you. But we're going to need more than my trust to fix this. The meeting with the cybersecurity team was eye-opening. Kevin Chen, the young head of the department, presented his initial findings. The leak was sophisticated, Kevin explained, projecting data onto the screen. Someone used valid credentials but masked the IP address. It happened at 3:47 a.m. Who was in the building at that time? Victor asked. According to security logs, no one. The access was remote. Elena studied the data. Kevin, can you show which files were accessed in the last 48 hours? Sure, he typed quickly. Interesting. There's a pattern of unusual activity. Someone was specifically looking for the Asian expansion documents, as if they knew exactly what to look for. Elena murmured, This isn't a random leak. It's targeted. Victor looked at her with surprise. Where did you learn about digital security? She answered with a straight face. Food Network. Then grinned. Just kidding. The restaurant's ordering system got hacked all the time. I learned the basics to protect us. Kevin laughed. Well, you're right. This was definitely planned. As the team kept digging, Elena realized something. Kevin, can you check the email logs? If someone leaked the documents, they might have left a trail. We already checked. Nothing was sent from company servers. What about photos? Elena suggested. Someone could have taken pictures of the screen and sent them from a personal phone. Kevin paused. I didn't think of that. Let me check access logs to see if anyone spent enough time on a document to photograph it page by page. While Kevin worked, Victor pulled Elena aside. You're thinking like an investigator. I'm thinking like someone who's seen waiters snap pictures of customers' credit cards. People think they're clever, but they always leave patterns. I found something, Kevin called out. 3 days ago, someone spent exactly 47 minutes on the Asian expansion file. That's enough time to photograph every page. Who was it? Victor asked. Kevin hesitated. The credentials show Elena Ramirez. The silence in the room was deafening. "That's impossible," Elena protested. "3 days ago I was still waiting tables." "Exactly," Victor said slowly. "Kevin, when was that account created?" More typing. "Monday, the day Elena started. So someone created a fake account using my name before I even got here," Elena concluded. "That's premeditated." Victor finished. "Someone planned this from the start." The meeting room door swung open and James rushed in. "Mr. Langford, we have a problem. A business blogger just posted about the leak. They're speculating it was revenge by an employee and they mentioned Elena by name." Victor grabbed James' tablet, scanning quickly. His face darkened. "How do they know about Elena?" "That wasn't public." Elena read over his shoulder. The post painted her as a bitter opportunist who leaked documents out of spite after the board meeting. "Only people who were in that meeting knew about that," she pointed out. "That means our saboteur was in the room." Victor concluded, "James, I want a list of everyone who was there." "Kevin, keep tracking." "I'm doing my own investigation," Elena said firmly. "Someone's using me as a scapegoat. I'm not going to just sit around." Victor looked like he was about to argue, but saw the determination in her eyes. "Be careful. Whoever's behind this is dangerous." Elena spent the rest of the day quietly investigating, using observation skills sharpened from years of reading customers. Marcus avoided eye contact. Some executives whispered when she walked by, but it was Laura who accidentally gave the first real clue. "It's odd," Laura said over coffee. "Marcus asked for access to the Asian expansion files last week. Said it was for a presentation, but there was no presentation." "When exactly?" Elena asked, trying to sound casual. "Thursday. I remember because my computer froze, and he was furious about the delay." Elena filed that away. "Thursday, 1 day before she got hired. The pieces were starting to fit." That night Elena stayed late again, this time with permission. Victor had given her full system access to help the investigation. "You should head home," Victor said, finding her still working at 8. "You've been here since early morning. So have you," she pointed out. "Besides, I'm used to long shifts. At least here nobody throws food at me when I'm late." He pulled up a chair beside her. "How are you holding up?" Elena stopped typing. "Honestly, I'm furious. I've worked hard my whole life, and now I'm being accused of something I wouldn't even have the tech skills to pull off if I wanted to." "Don't underestimate your skills. You've been surprising me since day one. Thanks for the vote of confidence, but hacking systems is a bit different than memorizing complicated orders." They shared a brief, comfortable silence before Victor spoke again. "You know, when I built this company, I thought the hard part would be landing clients, closing deals. I never imagined it'd have to deal with internal sabotage." "Welcome to the real world," Elena said with a half smile. At the restaurant, sabotage was more direct salt instead of sugar. Lost orders in the kitchen. Seems every workplace has its own politics. The difference is, there the consequence was a bad tip. Here it's millions of dollars. Victor watched her work for a moment. "You shouldn't be going through this. If I hadn't hired you, I'd still be serving coffee to people who treat me like furniture." Elena interrupted. "I don't regret it. Not even with all this craziness. Especially because of that, it means someone sees me as a threat. After years of being invisible, it's almost flattering." Victor laughed, a real, genuine laugh that cut the tension. "Only you could find a silver lining in this." Elena was about to respond when something on the screen caught her attention. "Wait, that's strange." "What is it?" "This file here. It's in a system folder, but the name is Contingency ER. She clicked to open it, but it was password protected." "ER, your initials?" Victor suggested. "Possibly. But why would someone create a contingency file with my initials?" Elena checked the file properties. Last Thursday, the same day, Marcus asked for access to the files. They looked at each other, the same conclusion forming. "This isn't a coincidence," Victor said slowly. "Definitely not. Someone was setting the stage before they even met me. Elena saved the file path. I need Kevin to crack this first. Let's go home. It's almost 9 and you need rest." "Well, continue tomorrow." As she packed up, Elena couldn't shake the feeling she was close to something big. The file named Contingency ER might be the key to proving her innocence. In the elevator, Victor broke the silence. "Elena, no matter what we find, I want you to know I don't regret hiring you, even if I'm a magnet for trouble. Especially because of that. I was getting bored with corporate life." Elena laughed. "Careful what you wish for, Mr. Langford. With me around, boredom is the last thing you'll feel." Little did she know how prophetic those words would be. The hidden file was just the tip of the iceberg of a conspiracy bigger than either of them imagined. The next morning, Elena arrived, determined. She had spent part of the night thinking about the mysterious file and couldn't wait for Kevin to unlock it. But something felt off. The office was strangely quiet, and people avoided looking at her more than usual. "Elena," Laura rushed toward her, face pale. "Where have you been?" "The board called an emergency meeting. They're waiting for you." "Emergency meeting?" "I just got here." It was Marcus. "He says he found solid proof about the leak." "Elena, he's saying it's you." Laura didn't need to finish. Elena understood immediately. Somehow Marcus had gotten ahead of her. She entered the boardroom and found stern faces around the table. Victor stood, clearly tense. Marcus, on the other hand, wore a triumphant smile that made Elena's stomach turn. Well, our saboteur finally shows up," Marcus announced. "Marcus, I told you to watch your tone," Victor warned. "Tone?" "Victor, the evidence is irrefutable." Marcus projected documents onto the screen. "I found access logs showing Elena downloaded confidential files onto a USB drive at 11:47 p.m. Monday night." Elena frowned. "Monday night I was home watching reruns of cooking shows and eating leftover lasagna. I don't even have a company-issued USB stick." "Exactly what a guilty person would say," Marcus shot back. Margaret Whitman adjusted her glasses. "Miss Ramirez, can you prove where you were?" "Of course. My Netflix history can confirm it. I watched 3 back-to-back episodes of Under Pressure Kitchen. I can even tell you who got eliminated." Some board members looked puzzled by her unexpected answer. "That's not evidence," Marcus insisted. "Anyone can leave the TV on." "True," Elena agreed. "But I doubt anyone could tweet sarcastic comments about the contestants while supposedly hacking corporate systems. I have the timestamps." She reached for her phone, but Marcus cut her off. "Too convenient. Besides, I found more." He clicked to the next slide. This email was sent from Elena's account to an anonymous address with the documents attached. Elena studied the screen. "Marcus, this is ridiculous. First, who commits corporate crimes using their own email account? Second, look at the grammar in that message. Please find attached the confidential document. I may be a former waitress, but I know how to conjugate verbs." "Maybe you wrote it that way on purpose," Marcus suggested. "Oh, sure, because criminals always add grammar mistakes to give their crime a little charm," Elena shot back. "Next theory, did I also leave sticky notes saying, 'It was me,' signed Elena the Saboteur?" Thomas stifled a laugh. "This is not a joke," Marcus exploded. "The company's reputation is at stake." "I agree," Elena said seriously. "Which is exactly why we should be looking for the real culprit, instead of wasting time with made-up accusations." "Made up?" Marcus turned red. "I have system logs right here." Kevin Chen raised his hand cautiously. "May I take a look at those logs?" Marcus hesitated. "That's not necessary. They're authentic. I'm sure they are, Kevin said diplomatically. But as head of digital security, I need to verify all data. Victor jumped on the opportunity. Good idea, Kevin. Go over everything. While Kevin reviewed the data on his laptop, Elena decided to take a risk. You know what I find curious? Last night, Victor and I found a file called Contingency ER, created last Thursday before I was even hired. Marcus' face lost color for a split second before he regained composure. Irrelevant. Probably an old system file. With my initials, what a cosmic coincidence. Margaret Whitman stepped in. Mr. Langford, the evidence presented is concerning. The board needs to consider the immediate dismissal of Miss Ramirez. Absolutely not, Victor said firmly. We're not going to make rash decisions based on questionable evidence. Questionable? Another board member, William Porter, interrupted. The logs look clear as the documents with errors that almost cost us the Japanese deal, Elena asked. Someone is manipulating information in this company. And it's not me. Enough. Marcus slammed the table. I demand the board vote now. I have a question, Elena said, pretending innocence. Marcus, can you explain why you requested access to the Asian expansion files last Thursday? Laura said you told her it was for a presentation. Marcus blinked. That's not relevant, is it? Because there was no presentation. I checked the calendar. I changed my mind about the presentation. Ah, I see. Changed your mind like you changed your mind about investigating me without permission or leaking my personal life to that blogger? I don't know what you're talking about. Kevin looked up from his laptop. Interesting. These logs were modified. The timestamps were altered. It's subtle, but the verification code doesn't match. Someone inserted these records after the fact. Marcus started to sweat. That there must be a mistake. The only mistake, Elena said, standing, was underestimating the intelligence of the people in this room. You put together a clever plan, Marcus. You planted evidence before you even met me, leaked documents, tried to frame me. But you missed one thing: sloppy frames always have holes. You can't prove anything, Marcus shouted. Not yet, Victor said calmly, but we will. Kevin, I want a full audit of all systems, every access, every change, everything. Margaret Whitman looked disturbed. Mr. Langford, these are serious accusations. Which is exactly why we need to investigate properly, Victor replied. I propose we suspend this meeting until we have solid facts. But the evidence, William Porter began, was discredited by our head of security. Victor cut him off. Unless you doubt Kevin's competence too. The silence spoke volumes. Marcus tried one last move. This is favoritism. Victor is protecting his favorite. My employee, Victor corrected, who has been accused based on false evidence. If anyone here has a problem with me defending the integrity of this investigation, take it up with the CEO. You are the CEO, Thomas noted, clearly enjoying the moment. Exactly, Margaret sighed. Very well. We have 48 hours for a full investigation. Until then, no action will be taken. The board members started leaving, murmuring among themselves. Marcus walked out with heavy steps, but not before shooting Elena a poisonous look. Once the room was empty except for Elena, Victor, and Kevin, Elena collapsed into her chair. That was, she began. Intense, Victor suggested. I was going to say like a bad crime show episode, but intense works. Kevin was still typing. I can access the actual logs. It'll take time, but I'll find out who did this. Thank you, Kevin, Victor said. Elena, are you okay? I'm great, she replied sarcastically. Nothing like being accused of corporate crimes to start the morning off right. But seriously, Marcus is desperate. That makes him dangerous. Victor nodded. That's exactly why we're going to turn the tables. Kevin, keep digging. I want every piece of evidence you can find. And what about me? Elena asked. Victor smiled, something calculating in that smile she hadn't seen before. "You're going to keep being yourself. Marcus expects you to back down. Instead, we'll give him exactly what he doesn't expect, a chance to expose himself. Tomorrow I'm calling a meeting with all the executives," Victor continued, "and we're going to set a little trap for our saboteur." Elena smiled back. "You know, for such a serious CEO, you've got an interesting, vengeful streak." "I learned from the best," he replied, looking at her. After all, who better to think outside the box than someone who's never been inside one? As they left the room, Elena felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The battle was far from over, but at least now they were striking back. And if there was one thing she had learned from years working in restaurants, it was that the best revenge is always served cold and at exactly the right moment. The next day, the main conference room at Langford Enterprises was packed. Victor had called every executive, manager, and director to what he labeled an emergency strategy meeting. Elena watched from her seat near the door, noting how tense Marcus looked, adjusting his tie over and over. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Victor began, voice calm but authoritative. "As you know, we're facing a serious crisis with the leak of confidential documents. But today we're going to resolve this once and for all." Marcus cleared his throat. "Victor, I thought we had 48 hours for the investigation. Why the meeting now?" "Because Kevin made some important discoveries," Victor replied, motioning to the head of cybersecurity. Kevin stood and connected his laptop to the projector. "Overnight, I was able to trace the real origin of the leak. It was complex work, but I found some interesting patterns." Elena discreetly watched Marcus. His hands trembled slightly as he grabbed a glass of water. "First," Kevin continued, "I confirmed that the logs presented yesterday against Elena were definitely falsified. But what's more interesting is how they were faked. He projected lines of code on the screen. To most, it looked like a foreign language, but for Elena, who had spent hours with Kevin preparing the presentation, every line was part of the puzzle. The saboteur used a specific method to mask IP addresses," Kevin explained. "It's an advanced technique, not something just anyone would know how to do." "That's fascinating, Kevin," Marcus interrupted. "But I don't see how this helps identify the culprit." Victor smiled slightly. "Patience, Marcus." "Kevin, please continue." "Here's the interesting part," Kevin said, clicking to the next slide. "This specific technique leaves a unique digital signature like an electronic fingerprint." Elena decided it was time for her part. "Kevin, can you explain what the code XK47BA means? The one that keeps showing up?" Kevin nodded. "Good observation, Elena. XK47 beta is a proprietary security protocol, very specific, very rare." "How rare?" Victor asked, though he already knew the answer. "Only 3 people in this company know that protocol," Kevin said. "Me, the former head of IT who retired last year, and—" Victor pressed. "And?" Marcus stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to frame me with technical jargon." "No one mentioned your name, Marcus," Elena said innocently. "Why are you so defensive?" "Because it's obvious where this is going." Marcus waved his arms frantically. "You two planned this to pin it on me." Laura frowned. "Marcus, you said yesterday you didn't understand anything about security protocols. How do you know this points to you?" Marcus' face turned red. That's not anyone can see, actually," Kevin continued calmly. "I was going to say the third person was our external security consultant. But it's interesting that you assumed I was talking about you." The room went silent. Several executives exchanged uneasy glances. Victor stood. "Marcus, do you have something you'd like to tell us?" "I don't have to say anything. This is a setup. Elena obviously conspired with you all." "Oh, sure," Elena said, folding her arms. "I, the waitress without a degree, conspired to create complex security protocols I can't even pronounce. Makes perfect sense." A few executives laughed nervously. Let's try something different, Victor suggested. Marcus, can you explain to everyone exactly what the XK47 beta protocol is? Marcus swallowed hard. It's an encryption system. What kind of system? Kevin asked. A sophisticated system. Sophisticated how? Elena added. Like a double espresso kind of sophisticated or quantum physics sophisticated. Stop making fun of me. Marcus burst out. Interesting, Kevin muttered, typing quickly. Because XK47 beta isn't an encryption system. It's a tracking protocol. I made up the name 5 minutes ago. The revelation hit like a bomb. Marcus turned pale as a sheet. But you said, Marcus stammered. I said it was a proprietary protocol, Kevin explained. You assumed the rest, and only someone trying to use real protocols to cover up activity would know to associate it with encryption. This doesn't prove anything, Marcus said desperately. Elena pulled out a folder she had brought. How about this then? Remember the contingency ER file Victor and I found? Kevin was able to open it. She pulled out documents. It's a detailed plan to frame a new employee in case something went wrong. Written last Thursday before I was even hired. Thomas took a copy. This is your digital signature on the document, Marcus. Forged, Marcus shouted. It's all forged. Funny, Laura cut in. You were so sure the evidence against Elena was real yesterday. Now that it's pointing at you, suddenly everything is forged. James raised his hand. May I add something? Marcus asked me last week for information about the candidates for the personal assistant role. Said it was for security purposes. I thought it was odd at the time. You wanted to know who Victor would hire, Elena concluded. So you could prepare your scapegoat. Marcus looked around the room, realizing he had lost all support. You don't understand, he finally said, voice low. Victor is ruining this company with his impulsive decisions. Hiring a waitress, what kind of message does that send? The message, Victor said coldly, is that I value competence over pedigree, something you clearly don't understand. I've given years to this company, Marcus yelled. Years! And you throw it all away for a woman you barely know. I didn't throw anything away, Victor replied. You did when you chose to sabotage deals and leak confidential information. Kevin raised his hand. Just got confirmation. We tracked the account that received payment for the leak. It's registered in the Cayman Islands, but we connected it to other transactions. Marcus, would you like to explain why you received $50,000 on Tuesday? The silence was deafening. Marcus sank into his chair, defeated. I just wanted to protect the company, he muttered. By selling our secrets? Elena asked in disbelief. That's an interesting definition of protection. You don't understand, Marcus glared at her. I worked alongside Victor for 5 years. 5 years. Then you show up with your tricks and your charm, and suddenly he listens to no one else. My tricks? Elena repeated. You mean like doing my job honestly? Several executives shook their heads in disapproval. Victor picked up the phone. Security. We need you in the main conference room. He looked at Marcus. You have 2 options. Leave quietly and face termination for cause, or resist and add criminal charges to the list. Marcus stood slowly, all arrogance gone. You'll regret this, Victor. She's going to destroy everything we built. The only person who destroyed anything here was you, Victor said. As security escorted Marcus out, the room erupted in conversation. Elena found herself surrounded by colleagues who had once kept their distance. Amazing how you noticed the patterns, Laura said, impressed. How did you stay so calm? Thomas asked. He'd have lost it. Years of dealing with drunk customers complaining about their food, Elena replied. Compared to that, a crooked executive is nothing. The crowd laughed, and Elena realized something had changed. The suspicious looks were gone, replaced by genuine respect. Slowly, the room emptied until only Elena and Victor remained. You were brilliant, Victor said, stepping closer. The idea of the fake protocol was genius. That was Kevin's idea, Elena admitted. I just suggested the name. XK47 was the code for the most complicated specialty coffee at the restaurant. Victor laughed, a real, warm sound. Of course it was. They stood close, the air between them charged with something unspoken. Elena could feel the warmth coming from him, saw the way he looked at her, not like a boss looking at an employee, but like something more. Elena, he began, voice soft, these last few days working with you, seeing your courage, your intelligence. Elena's heart sped up. She knew where this was going. She could feel the moment building. Victor leaned in slightly. I've never met anyone like you. For a second, Elena almost gave in, almost let the moment happen, but then reality hit. How complicated it would be. The gossip, how it could tarnish the credibility she had just begun to build. Well, she said, stepping back and breaking the moment, that's because you clearly don't eat out much. Smart waitresses are more common than you think. Victor blinked, clearly thrown off by the sudden shift. Elena, would you look at the time? She exclaimed, grabbing her things in a rush. I've got to go. My mom's waiting to hear how the day went. She'll be thrilled I wasn't arrested. Elena, wait, see you tomorrow, Victor. Great job today. Teamwork and all that. She practically ran down the hallway, leaving Victor standing in the empty room, confused and clearly frustrated. In the elevator, Elena leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. That had been close. Way too close. She couldn't afford to complicate things, not now. Not when she had finally earned respect. Even if part of her wanted badly to walk back into that room. Focus, Elena, she murmured to herself. You came here to work, not to live a fairy tale. But as the elevator descended, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Victor had looked at her like she was the only person in the world. 3 days had passed since Marcus had been exposed and escorted out of Langford Enterprises. The office now ran with a new sense of ease, without the constant tension he used to bring. Elena had settled into a comfortable routine, finally accepted by the team. But there was still something in the air between her and Victor, an unresolved tension since that almost moment in the conference room. It was on a Thursday afternoon that Victor appeared at her desk, hands in his pockets, looking strangely nervous. Elena, do you have plans for tonight? She looked up from the report she was reviewing. Let me check my packed schedule, Netflix, leftover Chinese food, and maybe trying to convince my imaginary cat to like me. Why? I'd like to have dinner with you. Before she could protest, he added quickly, not a business dinner, just dinner. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Victor, please, I promise it won't be anywhere fancy. No judging waiters or French menus. She couldn't help but smile. Where then? It's a surprise, but I can guarantee you won't need to Google the names of the dishes. Against her better judgment, Elena agreed. All right. But if someone shows up with a violin, I'm leaving. At 7, Victor picked her up in front of the building. Elena had expected a limousine, but he was driving a regular sedan, wearing jeans and a simple shirt. It was the first time she'd seen him out of his corporate uniform. Wow, she said as she got in. You own normal clothes. I'm shocked. I can also tie my own shoes, he replied, smiling. The surprise got even better when they stopped in front of a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. The place was cozy checkered tablecloths, candles, empty wine bottles as decoration. How do you know this place? Elena asked as they walked in. I lived in this neighborhood when I was starting out, Victor explained. Before Langford Enterprises. Before all of it. I ate here 3 times a week because it was the only place that let me pay at the end of the month. They sat at a table in the corner, and Elena realized she was seeing a completely different side of him. So the great Victor Langford was once broke like me, she teased. Worse. At least you had a steady job. I lived off freelance gigs and instant noodles. The waiter, an older Italian gentleman, recognized Victor immediately. "Vittorio, it's been ages. The usual lasagna? Vittorio?" Elena repeated, delighted. "Oh, this is pure gold." Victor blushed slightly. "Jeppy, this is Elena. Elena. Jeppe kept me fed during the lean years. Any friend of Vittorio is welcome here," Jeppe declared. "I'll bring the house special for both of you." While they waited for the food, the conversation flowed naturally. Without the formality of the office, Victor was surprisingly relaxed, almost funny. "So," Elena said, taking a sip of wine, "why did you bring me here? You could have impressed me with some five-star place." Victor grew serious. "Because I wanted you to see who I really am. Not the CEO, not the millionaire, just me." "And who are you?" "Victor Langford." He thought for a moment. "A guy who worked hard, got lucky, and lately has been realizing that success doesn't mean much if you're alone at the top." Elena played with her napkin. "Is loneliness the price of power? It doesn't have to be." He looked at her directly. "Elena, I need to tell you something. These past few days working with you, I've never met anyone like you." "Victor, let me finish, please." He took a deep breath. "You're smart in a way that doesn't come from books. You're funny without trying. You're brave in a way that makes me want to be better. And you're completely, frustratingly unpredictable." Elena laughed nervously. "You forgot stubborn and talks too much when nervous." "Those two," he smiled. "Elena, I know this complicates everything. I know you probably have 1,000 logical reasons to keep your distance. But, she whispered, "I've spent my whole life being logical. And look where it's gotten me, rich and alone, having dinner with assistants who fear me instead of challenge me." Elena took another sip of wine, gathering courage. "You know what's funny? I spent the whole week preparing a speech about how this would be inappropriate, how it would hurt my credibility, how people would talk, and then I realized they talk anyway, so forget it." She looked him in the eyes. "I feel the same, Victor. It's inconvenient, it's complicated, and it's probably a terrible idea. But, he repeated her words, "but you make me laugh. You make me feel smart. And you look at me like I'm more than just a former waitress trying to pretend I belong in your world." Victor reached his hand across the table. This time Elena didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally. "You're not pretending," he said gently. "You belong in any world you choose." The moment was interrupted by Victor's phone ringing. He was about to ignore it, but Elena saw the name James. "Take it," she said. "It could be important." Victor answered reluctantly. His expression quickly shifted from annoyed to concerned. "What? When? Are you sure?" He listened a few seconds more. "We're on our way." "What happened?" Elena asked as he hung up. "Marcus. Hess reappeared as a senior consultant at Apex Corporation." Elena felt her blood run cold. Apex was Langford Enterprises' biggest competitor. That's bad. Worse, James just found out they've scheduled an emergency meeting with our main Japanese investors for tomorrow. The same ones you helped close the deal with. Exactly. And there's more. Marcus apparently has crucial information about irregular practices at Langford Enterprises. Elena let go of his hand. "Hess going to try to use my hiring against you. Say you hired someone unqualified, that you're putting personal relationships above business." "Elena. No, Hess right. I'm a weak spot. A vulnerability he can exploit." She stood up. "I need to go." "Elena, wait." She stopped at the door. "I'm sorry, Victor." But as she turned to leave, something caught her eye. On the restaurant's TV, a news segment about Apex Corporation was playing, and in the background for just a second she saw something that made her heart race. A document on a table, partially visible, with a code she recognized, the same code from the forged files that nearly got her blamed. Elena grabbed her phone and quickly snapped a photo of the TV screen. Maybe, just maybe, she had found exactly what they needed to turn things around. She ran down the sidewalk, still holding the phone with the picture. Victor caught up quickly, gently grabbing her arm. "Elena, wait. You can't just leave like this." "Victor, you don't understand." She showed him the phone. "Look at this, the code on those Apex documents. It's the same as the forged files. Marcus using the same system." Victor studied the image, eyes narrowing. "You sure?" "Absolutely. I spent hours reviewing those codes with Kevin. He'd recognize them anywhere." Elena began pacing, mind racing. "Marcus isn't just trying to hurt you with the Japanese investors. He's doing something bigger. Let's get back to the office." Victor decided. "We need Kevin." 30 minutes later, they were at Langford Enterprises headquarters. The building was nearly empty, but Kevin was still there as always. "Weren't you supposed to be at a romantic dinner?" Kevin asked, surprised to see them. "Change of plans," Elena said, connecting her phone to the computer. "Kevin, I need you to analyze this." As Kevin examined the image, Elena explained about Marcus' connection to Apex. The young IT specialist's face grew more serious by the second. "This is bad," he said finally. "That code, Elena's right. It's identical to the system Marcus used here. But there's more." "More?" Victor asked. Kevin typed furiously. "If he's using the same system, I can trace it. It's like following digital footprints." He paused. "Wait, this is Marcus not just working with Apex. He's communicating with someone in Europe. Lots of encrypted emails going to Zurich, Berlin, Paris." Elena felt the pieces falling into place. He's not just selling information to Apex. He's building an entire network, selling Langford's secrets to multiple buyers. Victor concluded, face pale. If he succeeds, he could destroy our competitive advantage globally. "We need to stop him now," Elena finished. Kevin kept typing. "I found something. He scheduled a video call in 1 hour midnight here. Business hours in Europe. Can you intercept it?" Victor asked. "Better. I can break into the call, but we have to be smart about it." Elena had an idea. "Kevin, can you make it look like the breach came from inside Apex?" A sly smile crossed Kevin's face. "You're devious." "Yes, I can do that." For the next 40 minutes they worked intensely. Kevin prepared the technical intercept, while Elena and Victor reviewed the files they'd found. The pattern was clear. Marcus had copied not only expansion strategies but also proprietary formulas, client lists, even system passwords. "Has been planning this for months," Victor murmured. "Probably started before he even tried to frame me." "The question is why?" Elena wondered. "It's not just about money. This is personal for him." "Jealousy," Victor said simply. "He always wanted to be CEO. When he realized he never would be, he decided to tear everything down." "Connecting," Kevin announced. Total silence now. The screen came to life. Marcus appeared, adjusting his camera. Soon other windows opened, executives from various European companies. "Gentlemen," Marcus began in English, then switched to German. "Thank you for joining me." Elena whispered translations to Victor as Marcus continued. He was offering full packages of Langford Enterprises information, including future projects not yet announced. "The price is $5 million per regional package," Marcus said, "a small price for what I'm offering." One of the Europeans replied, "How do we know your information is legitimate?" Marcus smiled. "Because I worked beside Victor Langford for 5 years. I know every secret, every weakness. For example, he started listing specific details. Only an insider would know." Elena clenched her fist. It was worse than they imagined. "Kevin," she whispered. "Can you record everything?" Kevin nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard. The meeting went on for another 20 minutes, with Marcus negotiating prices and outlining details. Then one of the Europeans asked the crucial question, "And what about the assistant? This Elena Ramirez, isn't she a risk?" Marcus laughed. "That waitress? Please. She barely knows how to turn on a computer. Victor hired her for, let's say, non-professional reasons. She's no threat. In fact," Marcus continued, "she's perfect for our plans. When Langford Enterprises collapses, everyone will blame the incompetent girl Victor put in a position of trust. Two birds with one stone." "That's enough," Elena whispered. "Kevin, can you trace the locations of all participants?" "Already done. I have IPs, addresses, everything." "Perfect. Now let's end this." Elena picked up Victor's phone and dialed. "James, it's Elena. I know it's late, but I need you to wake up our contacts at Interpol." "Yes, International Police. We've got an active case of international corporate espionage happening right now." While Elena coordinated with James, Victor called the legal department and contacts at regulatory agencies. Marcus' video call continued, unaware of the storm closing in. "So? We're agreed?" Marcus asked the Europeans. "Transfers tomorrow. Delivery of information within 48 hours." Before anyone could respond, Kevin made his final move. Marcus' screen began to flicker. "What is?" Marcus tried to type, but his screen froze. Then, to his horror, a recording of everything he had said in the last 30 minutes started playing out loud. No, no, no. He tried to shut it down, but Kevin had taken full control. The European executives' windows began closing one by one, clearly in panic. Victor's phone rang. It was the head of security at Apex. "Mr. Langford, we've just uncovered unauthorized activity from our servers. It seems one of our new consultants, Marcus Whitford." Victor finished. "Yes, we know, and we have everything recorded." Within an hour, the story had exploded. Marcus was arrested at his apartment, still trying to delete evidence. The European executives faced investigations in their own countries. Apex Corporation publicly cut ties with Marcus, claiming they had no knowledge of his actions. Back at the office, Elena, Victor, and Kevin watched the news, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. "You did it again," Victor said to Elena. "You saved the company. You saved everything." "We did it," she corrected. "Teamwork, remember?" Kevin stood up, stretching. "Well, my job here is done. I'm going home before another crisis shows up." Left alone in the office, Victor turned to Elena. "About earlier at the restaurant, Victor, no, let me say this." He stepped closer. "You risked everything to protect this company, to protect me. And it's not the first time. Elena Ramirez, you are the most incredible woman I've ever met." Before she could respond, Victor pulled her into his arms and kissed her. It was a kiss full of promise, of possibility, of everything they hadn't said out loud. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "This is a terrible idea," Elena whispered, though she didn't step back. "Probably," Victor agreed, smiling. "But the best things in life usually are. Elena, I want you by my side, not just as my assistant, as my partner in everything. Are you asking me out in the middle of an international corporate crisis? Is there a better time? We just took down a corporate villain together. It's practically a typical date for us." Elena laughed, the sound echoing through the empty office. "You're crazy? Crazy about you," he corrected. "So what do you say?" Elena pretended to think. "Well, considering Il probably keeps saving your company on a regular basis, it might make sense to make this official. Is that a yes?" "It's a let's see where this goes," she said, pulling him into another kiss. As the sun began to rise over Manhattan, casting golden light across the office, Elena thought about how much her life had changed from waitress to corporate hero, from invisible to indispensable, and now girlfriend to the CEO. "What did I get myself into?" she murmured against Victor's lips. "The greatest adventure of your life," he answered. Elena had to agree. 6 months had passed since that early morning when Elena and Victor finally admitted how they felt. Langford Enterprises was thriving, with Elena officially promoted to Director of International Relations, a position created just for her unique skills. The company had never been better, and their relationship, despite a few early doubters, only made them stronger both personally and professionally. It was a regular Tuesday, or at least that's what everyone thought. The main conference room was full for the quarterly investor meeting. Elena was presenting the results of the Asian expansion, which had exceeded every expectation. "As you can see in the charts," she pointed to the screen, "our growth in the Japanese market rose 47% this quarter. The partners we signed 6 months ago are Elena." Victor suddenly interrupted, standing up from his chair. She paused, confused. Victor never interrupted her during presentations. "Yes? Sorry to interrupt, but there's something I need to do right now." The room went silent. Investors, executives, and staff exchanged puzzled looks. James looked especially alarmed. "Victor, we're in the middle of an investor presentation," Elena whispered, trying to stay professional. "I know." He walked over to her, and to everyone's absolute shock got down on one knee. A soft gasp came from Laura in the back of the room. "Oh my God," Elena murmured, her hand flying to cover her mouth. Victor pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. "Elena Ramirez, you came into my life serving wine and saving billions. You turned my cold corporate world into something vibrant and real. You taught me that success without joy is failure, that laughter is worth more than protocols, and that sometimes the best business decisions come from the heart." Tears began forming in Elena's eyes. Around the room she could hear emotional sighs. "You've saved my company more times than I can count," Victor went on. "But more importantly, you saved me from myself, from a life of loneliness at the top." So, in front of everyone who witnessed our unlikely journey, he opened a box, revealing a ring that sparkled under the room's lights. "Elena Ramirez, will you marry me?" For a moment Elena was speechless, rare enough that Kevin whispered to Thomas, "Mark the date." "You're proposing to me in the middle of a quarterly meeting," she finally managed to say. "Seemed fitting," Victor replied, still on one knee. "We met during a business meeting, and now we have plenty of witnesses, so you can't back out later." The room burst into laughter. Elena looked around. She saw familiar faces, Laura crying openly, James smiling and shaking his head, Thomas clapping quietly, Kevin recording everything on his phone. Even Margaret Whitman, the stern advisor, looked moved. "You know," Elena said, turning back to Victor, "normal people propose in fancy restaurants or on sunset beaches. But we're not normal people," Victor replied. "We're the ex-waitress turned corporate hero and the CEO who learned how to laugh." "When you put it that way," Elena reached out her hand. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Victor slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss as the room erupted in applause and cheers. "That was insane," Elena whispered against his lips. "Would you expect anything less from me?" The meeting was, of course, completely forgotten. The Japanese investors attending via video conference were delighted. "Very romantic," one of them exclaimed. "Better than a soap opera." 3 months later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, it felt like destiny had come full circle. The wedding took place on the terrace of the same upscale restaurant where it all began, the place where Elena had once served wine and saved her first billion-dollar deal. Jeppy, from the Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, had been specially hired to oversee the menu. "For Vittorio and his Elena," he declared to anyone who would listen. The manager who had once fired Elena was there too, invited by her. "No hard feelings," she said when she asked him. "If you hadn't fired me, none of this would have happened." He spent the entire reception looking mildly nauseated and deeply regretful. Laura was maid of honor, crying even before the ceremony started. You can't cry yet, Elena protested as they got ready. You'll ruin your makeup. I can't help it. It's so beautiful. The waitress turned princess. Corporate princess, Elena corrected. It's less Disney and more Wall Street Journal. The ceremony itself was the perfect blend of elegance and humor. When it came time for the vows, Victor surprised everyone. Elena, I promise to always appreciate your creative translations even when you use Google. I promise never to call you a mere assistant. I promise to laugh at your jokes, even the bad ones about coffee. Hey, my coffee jokes are great, Elena protested, making everyone laugh. And I promise, Victor continued, more serious now, to always remember that the best things in life are the ones we don't plan, like you. Elena wiped away a stubborn tear. Victor, I promise to keep saving your company on a regular basis. I promise to always say what I think, especially when you're being stubborn. I promise to make you laugh at least once a day. She paused, looking into his eyes. And I promise never to let you forget that an expensive suit isn't as impressive as a genuine heart. By the power vested in me, the officiant said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The kiss that followed lasted long enough for Kevin to shout, Get a room. The reception was unforgettable. James gave a hilarious speech about Elena's first day. I thought Victor had lost his mind hiring a waitress, but then she saved the Japan deal with Google Translate, and I thought, okay, maybe he knows what he's doing. Thomas talked about the meeting where Marcus was exposed. Elena made up a fake protocol on the spot, XK something. Marcus fell for it completely. It was better than TV. Kevin showed a video montage of Elena's greatest hits at Langford Enterprises, her funniest comebacks, and the moments she left arrogant executives speechless. But the most touching moment came when Harold, the night security guard, approached Elena during the party. Remember what I told you on your first day? He asked. About playing the game but never losing who you are. How could I forget? You did better than that, he said, emotional. You changed the whole game, and you taught all of us how to play better. The night went on with dancing, laughter, and plenty of Italian food courtesy of Geppi. Elena had changed out of her wedding dress into something simpler for dancing, but she kept the veil, because it goes with sneakers, she explained to a horrified Laura. You know, Victor said as they danced under the stars, when I walked into that dinner almost a year ago, I never imagined it would end like this. Married to the waitress, Elena teased. Married to the most amazing woman in the world, he corrected, who just happened to be a waitress. Was, and proudly, she said. By the way, I can still balance 3 plates on each arm. Very handy for family dinners. Victor laughed. I can't wait to see that. Near midnight, as the guests started saying their goodbyes, Elena and Victor slipped away to the empty terrace. The city sparkled below them, full of possibilities. So, Mrs. Langford, Victor said, pulling her close. Any regrets? Just one, Elena replied. He frowned, concerned. What is it? Not asking for a raise before agreeing to marry the boss. Victor laughed, spinning her in his arms. I think we can work something out. Good, because I have a few ideas to improve our meetings, starting with real coffee. He silenced her with a kiss. And Elena thought there was no place in the world she'd rather be. The former waitress who dared to sit at the table with the powerful. The CEO who learned that success means more when it's shared. Together they proved that sometimes the best deals are the ones made with the heart.